mail-in ballots they're expecting for the November election. Let's talk about it with Ross Marchand from the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, the Young Voices senior contributor, and according to Twitter, the next Postmaster General. He's up late with me on the Final Five.
So you better believe it.
You've been our go-to because this has been a big issue, and I think the last time we talked to you was really when the post office was getting up against this wall where they were asking for a giant bailout. The president says he is not on board with anything. Why is that, in your estimation, the smart move?
Well, look, since last we spoke, the Postal Service got a $10 billion loan from taxpayers from the Treasury. So that, coupled with the revenue that the Postal Service already has, puts it on, I don't want to say firm footing, but okay footing for the time being. They can run, they can facilitate an election. They need reform, but now is not the time for a blank check from taxpayers.
What is, in your estimation, reform when it comes to the Postal Service, which is an institution so ingrained in Americana, so ingrained in their history, the Founding Fathers put it in the Constitution, enumerating those powers with Congress. How do you reform this monolithic institution?
We have to get the costs under control. They give out bloated contracts like candy. So that is the first thing that they need to focus on. The second thing they need to focus on, and this is probably the most important thing, they systematically underprice their packages. And unless you have enough revenue getting in, simple mathematical equation here, the books are not going to balance and you continue to have hundreds of billions of dollars of liability. They have to get back on a firm fiscal footing.
So I think people are looking at this from two different angles. One, you talk about the prices and talk about making it competitive from a business angle, which I think makes sense for many different reasons. But when you look at the rhetoric over the last several weeks when it comes to mail-in voting, and the president sort of brought those two issues together today, there are many people, especially when you look at the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, a President Trump appointee who has some investments and interests that would theoretically compete with the Postal Service. There are people that believe this is all politics and nothing more.
Right. And, I hear all these concerns and I see it on Twitter day in and day out, as you well know. But the truth of the matter is all these concerns are being hyped up and all these claims, all this misinformation coming out. I mean, it's not grounded in anything. It's thinly sourced. It's routine sort of downsizing and reshuffling of management roles that, frankly, we've been seeing for years. So I think we need a little bit less misinformation, in fact, a lot less, and a lot more facts and sort of sober accounting of the analysis and the problems facing the Postal Service.
When you say misinformation, are we talking about from one side? Are we hearing it from different sides here? I mean, it is tough sometimes to cut through the distraction and the spin.
Right. I mean, we're really seeing it from both sides. I mean, look, I focus a lot on the financial issues, and people denying and trying to spin the financial issues is not a big deal. I mean, we see it from the right, too. We see it from President Trump saying that there's going to be massive voter fraud if we do mail-in. There's no evidence for that either. So you're really seeing both sides just putting out a slew of misinformation. We have to cut through that to get to the facts.
I'll tell you one thing, and you bring up, Ross, is that there was a story that spread like wildfire a week ago that said the Postal Service was telling all of these elections agencies that you have to use a higher postal rate to send out these ballots. We're not going to take a bulk rate. It turns out that that's not necessarily the case. They are giving them the option of bulk rate or paying the first class price. But you're right. When it comes to something like this, there's just a lot of different stories that come out. We know that there's no turning back when it comes to a lot of these states when we talk about the election being held. But, when you talk about that amount of mail that's coming out, it's certainly that volume is certainly not unprecedented.
Oh, right. Absolutely. I mean, look, you have the Postal Service in a situation where they are handling billions of mail pieces each and every week. So to go from that and tack on a couple hundred million, I mean, it's really just a walk in the park. That's not the part we need to be focused on. The thing that we really need to be worried about is the financials, not leading up to the election necessarily, but in the long term, making sure that the Postal Service is where it needs to be and covering its costs.
All right. Ross Marchand, good to see you again, my friend.
Thanks. Great to be back.
Final Five back after this.